0. Now give it about 15 seconds. Go to Facebook. Go to my page. It should be at the top of the page.
Can't see it there. Not yet, anyway.
No, you might have to refresh.
Yes, yeah. Okay, great. So I can read and see myself.
Okay. Yeah, it's on now. Yeah, just make sure you turn the volume down. Okay. All right. BP Jewel is in the house. He says, Todd, send me your PayPal link so I can donate. Thank you. And all you and Morgan are doing. Thank you. Thank everybody for showing up. Tom Whitebear and the Sia. Joan Kirkendall's back. Sue Baxter Fitz. Sasha Grace is in the house, but she's in the house here. She's on here too. Nasia Joni Drum. All right. Got 13 people in the house. If these shows resonate with you, please share. I'm just going to take a moment to share it in the network. And then we'll formally roll the show out. Let's see. Yeah, the event is happening is a really good website. Jim McCarty does a great job with that website. And whoever else is involved. Yeah. Really is. Really is. I dig it. Okay. 25 people in the house and counting. Karen Anastasia Raleigh had a great show with her last night. And her husband, if anybody wants to see a divine masculine in the flesh, I would encourage you to watch it. Trish Riley, Ashley Wright, Yvanya's in the house from Tasmania, Diane McLaughlin, Susan Hoffman. All right, 29 people in the house. We got a special show to end our day with a divine feminine from Australia. She's a multidimensional psychic healer and life coach. She's a singer, a vocal coach, artist, and dancer. 14 years ago, she accessed Kundalini Shakti through a chakra meditation she'd been doing for around 3 years. From then on, she was given the ability to see through other people's bodies, channel, and clear the old program matrix, including trauma patterns and beliefs online and face-to-face. The result was a fast track towards awakening her own unique coding and blueprint without the indoctrinations and slave program keeping you small. All right. After living through an extremely unnurturing childhood, she found herself suffering with chronic illnesses that were in effect a result of the traumatized and terrorized child. She took on the journey of becoming her own internal parents, hence healing herself, which now is passed on through her work. Around 3 months ago, she experienced a full embodiment of her galactic avatar self, Kiara Cora, who is a mixture of Pleiadian, Arcturian. She now works hand in hand with this powerful aspect of herself to help others become liberated from the old program so that they can glide more easily into the beloved 5D. All right. So welcome to the show, Soul Speaks 5D. Sasha Grace, thank you for sharing space with us today and honoring us.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks so much for having me on. It's lovely to be here.
Yes, it is. There's a little bit of a lag. I just called. Did you catch her? Yeah, we're good. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
We'll be all right. So 14 years ago, this started for you, right?
It didn't really start for me 14 years ago, but I mean, at 13, I guess I started meditating because when I was 13 was when I kind of, decided I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be on the planet. So that was when I began to search for something that was closer to home than what I was being brought up with, so my world began at a very early age. Closing the eyes down and tuning into home. A place where I felt a lot safer than what was around me. But 14 years ago, at this stage, I'd been meditating a lot, and I'd been doing this chakra meditation for about 2 or 3 years. And it was a very intense time for me. My father was dying of cancer, so he was in Greece, and I'd just been told, and I had to go and see him in a week. And I sat in my friend's back garden, and I did this chakra meditation, which had been getting stronger and stronger, and as far as I'm concerned, from my experience, it's such a powerful meditation, because what you're doing is you're waking up every aspect of self. So you're eventually creating the ultimate God self, because all of these aspects are woken up by breathing the color into each one and then bringing that color out. So what happened to me was I was sitting in this garden, and I'd done all the chakras, and all of a sudden I got to the crown chakra, and my hands contorted in this mudra, like literally contorted, and my mouth contorted upwards, and my whole body began to shake and vibrate. And I stood up, and when I stood up, I was about 10 to 12 foot tall, and I was in total bliss, and my whole body was still vibrating with this electrical frequency. And this continued for probably a good 40 minutes. I walked to the back of the garden as this enormous blissful being. I climbed on this tree, and I'm like, wow, the tree, and I'm climbing on this tree. Just like, wow, I was a huge being. And what woke that electrical energy, well, what stopped it was I walked into the bathroom, actually, and I accidentally caught a glimpse of myself, and I looked so weird that I think a yelp kind of came out of my mouth, and it just stopped it. It woke me up. So that was the beginning of the next level journey for me. And
you're lucky you didn't scare the hell out of the humans so bad they didn't put you in the psych ward permanently. So Yvonnya from down in Tasmania, which is your countrymate, right? She says, I'd love to see her eyes so the live isn't over it. So could you point your camera up a little bit?
Where is, oh, really? You can't see my eyes? I can see my eyes. Is that better?
There you go. There you're going. Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Because I can see my whole head here, but you must be getting a different view.
Yeah, they are, not me, but they are in the audience, and they wanted to. All right.
Okay.
So, what I was going to say is, so at 13 years old, you said something that I've heard many people say about, in their own lives and at certain ages in their lives, but nothing at 13 years old. So at 13 years old, you were ready to leave the earth, as if you knew you weren't from here.
I recently, in fact, the last week, I have been helping quite a few women that I know, and it was also a belief that came up for me, which these beliefs that I help release seem to come up in collective waves. And this belief was, and I'm sure most people in our beautiful audience here could relate to this. This belief was, it's not safe to be here. And now with the technique I use, when you go in and you actually switch it off, you get to actually live the experiences that created that belief. And the experience when I was turning this off, what I got to live through in that switching it off was, it was as a baby when I came out. And I understand why, because my dear beloved mother, she's so far from my world, and I do believe that I was brought up. Brought up with reptilian energies, basically. It's kind of hard for me to talk about because I don't want, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to personalize.
Yeah, no. I mean, we're talking energy here. We're talking energy here, so it's nothing personal.
Yeah. So I think probably most people watching the show can relate to this, because probably most people watching the show are what we would call empaths. And a part of our design in this ascension was to choose these families. I know for myself, I can't really speak for anyone else, but choose these families that were so far away from what our true home really is, that the moment we got in contact with them, well, again, I can only speak for myself, but it was kind of like, oh my God, what have I done? It's not safe. This is not safe. Yeah. So, and it was torturous. It was narcissistic. It was torturous. So it's been a very lonely path, and I've being very careful. I'm trying to be careful. I've got edges.
Your
Yeah.
your story and your words sound just like my partner.
Oh, interesting.
Morgan Lee,
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. I
Many
really
of
feel like I need to connect with the beautiful Morgan. She's also
y'all
from
need to
here.
y'all need to connect because she said the same things.
Wow. Wow. There you go.
So you were aware. I mean, do you feel like you were aware at an early age you were from another planet? Let's put it that way, or another place.
Yeah, I think at that stage there was such a big numbness from the matrix over us that it was just kind of this sort of weird, numb, like what's going on energy. Do you know what I mean? Definitely, you know, I'd go. I mean, I went to 10 schools. We were moving around constantly, so I was always like an alien anyway. But I always felt like an alien. I was always quite separate, and I would bounce around from group to group. Do you know what I mean? I never quite sort of belonged and. Yeah, but I learnt my ways, you know, I guess traveling so much, you know, from an early age and going to so many schools.
So when did what was the first hard evidence, or what was the first communication that you had from the universe? Was it a galactic communication? Was it angelic that you started to listen to, that you started to, I don't know, higher self maybe, or when did it happen that you started to really say, hey, I'm going to live this life in belief of this versus dealing with that other crap?
It didn't really, I guess it didn't really, it was more of okay, the way it happened was my father, who took off when I was about 9, he became an esoteric healing teacher overseas, but then we never saw him. And I think we were wrapped up in a kind of a bit of a toxic story that my mother had experienced. And so we never saw him. And then he popped into my life at around about the age of 13, and he gave me a book by Shakti Gawain called Creative Visualization.
Creative Visualization. That's a good little book. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was my little home. That's what began my meditating. I would go in, I would be able to go, you know, escape from this creepy, freaky place that was my family home, and go into meditation and go and experience and create, you know, what I wanted to. So at that point, I wasn't aware of what my purpose was, but as I got older, and, you know, my beautiful mother, she did send me to singing lessons, and it was these singing lessons specifically that were profound. The singing lessons changed my world, because this specific technique that I learned is like a programming. So it programs you, it tunes you into the sound, and it tunes you into the note. So because of the narcissism I was brought up with, and again, I'm trying to track edges here, so it's tricky to talk about. I couldn't leave the house without having panic attacks. And so I was completely paranoid because I'd been taught that everyone was against me, right? And so that was how it began. So it's kind of like the big joke, you know, you get given all these abilities. I got given all these talents to be able to be an artist or a dancer or a singer, create whatever I want, but all of my confidence was completely taken off me. And that's how it began, you know, anxiety and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, so next question.
So no. So what did the music do for you? You said there was some kind of code in it. It was like coding.
Yeah, it was it was so profound that it completely transformed how I walked on the planet, because the technique itself teaches you how to let go of the mind and sing from the core, and it programs you, and it does it in a very yogic way. And so I took it on as a career. I decided to create a business out of it, created a website, and I taught it for a good 16 to 18 years, including, you know, workshops and stuff like that. And it was profound, you know, like each class, most people would cry on their first lesson, you know, and it was a deep honor to walk people through that sort of a healing, which happened in my lessons. And very quickly from that modality, I began to see that my blueprint was about going straight in and helping people access their blueprint. And that began, you know, really when I started teaching, I got to witness myself in that. And so I started to unravel and started to understand, oh, okay, right, this is what I do. You know, it's almost like we don't know it instantly. And I had to get off skyscrapers of guilt and shame and everything that had been put on me. So it was a massive unraveling, you know, that would often happen with giant epiphanies, and huge amounts would come off in one go, or, you know, incredible experiences through meditation, or, you know, whatever it was. Yeah. So, and so now I do the work that I do. I got a call to sort of just step into something different, because I was just being shown that this is the next level. You kind of done the singing teaching now, so do this, because this is actually who you really are, and then eventually probably you can blend the two together. And
Marianne Savino was just on, and she said the same thing. She's done all kinds of stuff, and she just moved into something else now. So as far as the this unique way of singing, it's coded. Probably has something to do with breathing, I'm sure. A little yoga-ish. Can you give us an example of that?
You want like a mini singing lesson? Okay. Well, the first thing we learn to do is we learn to breathe from the diaphragm. And we learn where the diaphragm is. We take a deep breath into the diaphragm, and then what we do is this. We drop the jaw right down like we're doing a yawn. Then we place the tongue in between the teeth and let out a short, sharp breath, out breath through the nose like this. And then we start with the first note. So we'll go, and that's the first practice. And you just go up the scale and down the scale. It's very, very simple. It's basically programming you. And what happens is when you reach what I would call the lightning area or the head voice, then you start to, because everything you're doing in that container becomes a program, because all of this is programming you. Then you begin to pull in the diaphragm to support those higher notes. So after a while, when you sing, you know, your body starts working like a machine. So your diaphragm will be going in and out like this, and to support those high notes. And all of this is completely relaxed. So all of the stuff in the mind falls away because the attention is on the core. And what it does also to the mind, body, spirit is it brings through confidence. So that's where it transformed me. It not only transformed my voice, but all of a sudden I had this internal confidence that this technique gifted me with. So that's why I took it on as a career, because it transformed me.
So did the people cry because of the exercise of going up and down? Or did they cry because...
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we keep it very, very simple at the beginning, and it's just that you go all the way up and you go all the way down, and each note holds a certain frequency. Each note can hold a certain blockage. You know, there is so much emotion in this, because this is, you know, we were held back, that, you know, as women as well, you know, we were held back so much. I take all sorts of chains and stuff off women's throats in session, you know, or men, you know, in their lives as women, from being held back and not being allowed to express ourselves, you know. So yeah, it's massive. It's massive. This is people's tool to become their incredible self, and it begins with personal self-expression, right? Because if we're not doing that, we're holding it back and we're blocking and locking up. So it's powerful.
Sounds like it's related to the chakras too. If you're going up and down with
very much. Yes, you are so on, Todd. Yeah, totally. So one of the things I would people through, we're talking a lot about this, and I'm not doing more, but I do it here and there if people are interested. But one of the things that I would do with my clients, my students, is I would really get them to shift attention, for focus of attention. So, for example, when they're doing these notes, get them to bring the attention to where the note is actually going in the body. And you'll find that a note will go to target the first place that actually needs to be healed.
Mm. Wow.
And when you go into presence with your attention, it's amazing how much that personifies the power of the healing when your attention is brought into that area. I think with everything as well, you know. So yeah, I would get them to focus on that, and then I might get them to focus on the visual that was coming up for them. Then I might get them to bring it outwards so that they could focus on my voice and their voice and making our voice sound the same. So they're going into listening, and so this alchemy of shifting attention, I feel really is the alchemy for empaths to learn to do, so that we don't get sucked dry by external energies, so that we are the master creators of where we put our energy and our attention. But it's a patterning. It's like we've got to train ourselves to do these things, you know.
So when you get hit with energy or somebody upsets you or whatever happens, what do? Do you do this exercise? Do you something with sound to process it and stabilize and integrate and ground?
If someone upsets me, what do I do? Yeah, I think, I mean, look, there's so many different things that we can do, and there's so many different things that I do. Depends on where I'm at, I guess. But sound is pretty powerful. You know, if we can tune into where in our body that this pain or this aggravation is sitting, and then, you know, release a sound into it, that's, you know, it can be a powerful way to release.
Very cool. So what happened recently? You had what, 2 aspects come in? Kiara, Cora.
So about it. Look, it's been a wild adventure.
Well, we got some time.
You know, that electrical energy that came through, it wasn't the first time. You know, I've received other loads of electrical energy since then. You know, when my whole body is shaken, and so, you know, I've passed out with my body shaking, and I've woken up, and I can see this divine matrix, and I've literally had some sort of time lapse where I didn't even know where I went. And so recently what happened was I was on a shamanic journey with my shaman, and I experienced the full embodiment of an enormous galactic being who was speaking. I mean, I've done a lot of channeling before, you know, but this was different. She was speaking through me, and her movements. I mean, she's amazing. We work with each other now because I'll tell you the story. But she speaks light language, and she moves with hand mudras and movements, and you know, it's very from another planet. And I was basically looking at my shaman through another dimension. So it was like these ripples around me, and little me was sort of there observing this huge being speaking through me. And I had to keep saying to my shaman, I'm still here. I'm still here. But her energy is so divine that it was okay. Like, it was okay. I wanted that to happen. And she's very intense. She's very rich for what she speaks for. She speaks for Terra. She calls it Terra, which is Mother Earth or Mother Gaia. And she is passionate. She's highly emotional, and she's full of love. So she can, with the light language and the wording, she would just, I mean, I've had groups of people here and, you know, small groups, and she's just walked around and, you know, each one of them has burst into tears as she's done a healing with them. And then they've all transcribed exactly what she was doing to them. So each person knew exactly, detail to detail, what she was doing to them individually. Wow. Because one of the things with her that I say to people is she speaks within the knowing. So she speaks to your knowing. This is how extraterrestrials also communicate. They communicate to us through our knowing. Call it intuition, but it is through our knowing, right? All the other stuff is the bullshit we're clearing off.
Is that what they call it? So
yes, I think so.
Now, do you feel that Kiara Core is an aspect of you?
Well, yeah, this was the interesting progression. So 2 days after this whole experience, she was still with me, and she was huge. And because I understand the universal law, you know, I said, okay, right, it's time for you to go now. This might feel good and you're amazing, but it's time for you to go now. And then I was still very much in a very, you know, powerful place. And at that point, 2 beings from the High Council of Light were sent down, and they looked at her and they looked at me and they said, you don't want to let her go. Because she's you. She is your avatar starseed before the Matrix and the program came in. And it makes so much sense to me now. My whole life makes so much sense to me. And all of it makes so much sense. And even like the way I dance and the way she moves, like, you know, I move like an alien sometimes when I dance. I know every beat before it happens. It's, you know, it's this sort of multi-dimensional frequency of the mother, which is that same, okay, let's go deeper with this. It's that same frequency. If you can allow yourself to go outside and sit in nature and just tune into listening, you'll pick up the frequency, because everything is talking to everything, and it becomes almost like one sound, one electrical energy. Yeah. For some reason, I just completely
went blank. That's part of the transition we call ascension, the 3D memory. But okay. So now, have you had other aspects that you found later you embodied into you, maybe not that intensely, but into you basically, or maybe ones that you've channeled? No, I mean other aspects that you've channeled, let's just say, did they come at some point and become embodied in you as well?
Not in the same way, but I had another experience with my shaman many years ago, where we had been talking about the land in Australia and here in Byron Bay and through Australia. You know, there's been a lot of Aboriginal massacres, and we were actually having this conversation this night just before we did this journey, and we were talking about how there's pockets of you know, areas here that don't feel so good, and so that was already cementing our healing together and our journey together. And what preceded you know, that evening was the most profound night of my life. He said to me, you know, you probably won't want to sing in this because it's not something that works with singing. And I went, right, okay, sure. And then the first thing I did as it came on was I picked up my guitar and I started going for it. And my voice took the journey. And what started to happen in that was the walls fell away from where we were. it was pretty wild. I mean, it's so wild. We got surrounded by a circle of all the different alien races. In front of me, I had an Arcturian who was obviously the communicator and the one that was the one that was speaking and communicating. And around the outside of them, all the Aboriginal spirits came in, and they all linked hands around the outside. And then around the outside of that, the trees came in. I kid you not.
Wow.
The trees came in and linked arms around us. And the more I sung, and I knew now this was the amazing part. I knew exactly what to do. I was a member of the Galactic Confederation, and I knew exactly what to do when I was allowed to do it. And so in my little me human world, you know, we'd had all that taken off us. Yeah. We'd had that natural knowing, that natural I'm allowed to be this incredible self taken away. And we, you know, had all these different reasons why not, or I could be egoic or whatever. But in this space, I was allowed to be that. And so the more I sung, the more happened. So there was a huge spaceship over us. I believe it was an Arcturian ship. It was quite see-through and you know, milky sort of see-through ship. And the more I sung, what started to happen was this: the outside, this group that was there started to spin around us and got faster and faster and faster, and then light just went into the sky and down into the earth. And it was a portal. It was a giant portal of light, of healing light. And at one point, the Arcturian that was communicating with me got super excited and asked me if he had, I believe it was a male, permission to sing through me. And I said yes. And then he completely embodied me, and I became light, and with these huge hands and these long arms. And yeah, it was divine. And then it all stopped. And then they started to fly away, and then there were these spaceship flew away, and then some of the trees folded up into spaceships. I think they were hiding behind the trees. I'm sounding a bit like a nutter here, but this all happened.
I believe you totally. You're in good company. Everybody here is as crazy as you are. No, this is great. This is what people need to hear. They need to hear about the personal experience that we've all had.
Yes.
Everybody's different.
Yes. But what happened as they started to flew away was I lost my shit. I lost it. I just went, don't go. And I was on the floor in absolute tears. And I'll tell you why. I have never experienced that sort of kinship on planet Earth. I had never experienced that sort of home. I can't even explain it. And so I went through this process. And then just as I did that, all of a sudden, I was in the spaceship. And I was watching the little building we were in. And it was getting smaller and smaller. And around this building, I could see all the expanse of the whole Byron Shire, which is quite a big area. And it was sparkling. It had these sparkles going all through the land. So they were showing me what we'd done with the portal. And then they said to me, you know, it doesn't matter that we're up here. We are there with you. There isn't any separation. And then the moment they said that, I was back in my body and I was surrounded by this cream. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. I was surrounded by this beautiful cream fluff, and it was like the ultimate safety. And I was just, they were holding me in it, and they were just telling me, you're completely safe. And that was that night.
Wow. I need to take a break on that one. That's some powerful stuff. Everybody's resonating with it. Let's come back to it. Wait for the reverb. Oh, there it goes. And let's go back to 13. Without going into all that you pretty much gave us a general description, your father, who you hadn't seen, who went and became an esoteric teacher, comes back and gives you creative visualization by Shakti Gawain. And I mean, the impact of that is obvious. I mean, that was huge for you, just for starters, right? And
Yeah.
so from a soul perspective, what's that connection like, you and your father? I mean, that has to be.
Well, from a soul perspective, I mean, he died 14 years ago. And after his death, I was in the Greek islands, and I was lying in a hotel room with my boyfriend, and I felt him come in, and I actually had to ask my boyfriend to leave. And it hadn't. I only realized afterwards this was actually the 40th day after his death. And he was distorted. I could see him, I could feel him, and he was distorting into all these beings. And I could see that this was the unresolved, stuff in him that hadn't been dealt with, in his lifetime. And so he was literally distorting into these weird looking creatures like animals and stuff. It was very strange. And I was with him, and he was there. It was very intense. And I said to him, it's okay. It's okay that you weren't there. You weren't meant to be there. You were meant to be in my life more as a guide. And what you did for me by giving me that book, it set me on my spiritual journey. It was the beginning of me understanding that there was some sort of home for me. So I love you and I forgive you, and all is well. And with that, it was like I must have released him, but my whole, like the whole right hand side of my body and all my chakras just went like this. And then he left, and I was buzzing. My whole body was just buzzing.
Wow. Man, it's like something happens every day to you, or what?
It's been a big life. It's been wild. I'm shamanic, so it's been a shamanic life. It's been lots of deaths. It's been intense.
Yeah. So you're into something new now, and can you tell us a little bit about what that is? What your practice is like now? Because I know it's changed a little bit. And you've got a event coming up or a course coming up too. You might want to talk about that.
Yes, sure. I'll talk about so this, what I was given the ability to do 14 years ago was be able to see through bodies and work for these guys to clear the matrix and to clear the old programming. So I guess I can briefly tell you how I started to get this. In fact, it all happened on one particular day when I was with the same Greek guy 14 years ago. And I went to do a Seishim healing on him, which was the female version of Reiki. So I'd had that attuned into me. And something said to me, put the pendulum down. So I put it down. And then all of a sudden, my hands started moving over his body at a huge, crazy rate. I could see through his body. I could see his spine as light. I could see the inside of his body. And as that was happening, there were multitudes of information all coming down at once. And it went on for about an hour and a half. I was blown away. And at the end of it, we went for a walk, and he was just a completely different person. He said everything looked really bright, and he was put out. He went into the beta level, which I realized would happen with this work when someone wasn't really that spiritually orientated. They would go into a different, they would be sent to a different place, so they didn't wake up and see me doing all this crazy stuff. So we went for this walk, and we went to one of the beaches in this beautiful island of Kufanisi. And as we went over the hill and we got to the beach, my jaw dropped to the ground, because what I was seeing was a whole beach full of people, but there were blue sparks coming off the ball when people were playing rackets. There were pinks and violets coming off people when they were speaking. There was blue sparks coming off the sea. It was just this whole cacophony of magical colors and sparks. And yeah, that was my first initiation. I didn't step straight into the work professionally from that moment. I hid from it a lot. I didn't know how to integrate it into the real world. I didn't really want to be seen as another, supposed spiritual person or something. I don't know. I made all these excuses up. And it was only really maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I let myself say, this is, really step into it, put it out there, put a post on Facebook, said, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. I'm offering this many sessions, for barely anything at all. And that's how I started seeing clients and, allowed myself to give myself permission to actually really go for the mission that I'm here on now, which is to help as many people wake up as possible before I die. I really don't care. Like, that's my mission. To help liberate them, and so that they're not caught up in the mess of their mind, and they get to understand what inner peace is, because that's where I sit in most of my life now. They get to become the creators of what their mission is, and they get to have the blanket of the matrix taken off them. The old program, and that's what this work does. So
wow, that's interesting.
I work with it as well. Sorry, yeah.
No, we get back on it, but I just think that's interesting too, that it happened the same time you had that visitation from your father. It's the same time period, basically.
Yes, isn't it very interesting? And he's often with me in some of my sessions, but that is interesting, actually.
Well, if he's with you in some of his sessions, there's definitely there's something going on there. Yeah. So now as far as your client, as far as your practice, I mean, this is what you primarily do, is reading the body, scanning the body.
Yeah. So I work with Kiara Corder hand in hand. She's me. I mean, it's really just next level with her. It's the light language comes through, and then I'll just transcribe it. It's very succinct. I think however many initiations I've had, I'm now at that point in my life where I'm rock solid with my work. It doesn't sway me. I'm not, mentally, in any other state other than I'm very available for this work. So, I basically. It's on tap, so I can do it whenever I choose. The thing is I don't choose to ever do it other than when I'm in a session, and that's the beauty of the mastership that I've learnt to do. I have a mastership over this. People, when I'm out, ask me to do a reading, and I won't. It's a sacred thing. I work with very big beings, and when I'm on in session, I'm on. I switch it on, but I refuse to be. I don't go out, and I don't let myself be a guppy to energy. Okay, so, but what happens in a session is, basically I get shown meridian points, and under these meridian points are a trauma from childhood generally, and different areas and different times in life where that person has taken on a certain belief or an identity, and they put that over the top of the trauma. And be it online or face-to-face, I can actually transmute that trauma by working with my own body while it's happening, and it will go through me, and then under that I will help them with another technique that I have to help them actually switch off beliefs and switch off identities, so that it doesn't that they don't have to resist anything anymore. Right? Because the thing is, right, you can have a belief come up like, I'm not good enough, or it's not safe to be here, and have an awareness of that, but you're still going into resistance of it. But this actually switches them off. It actually switches them off completely.
And so, you've been aware for a very long time. I lose you.
Aware for a very long time, did
Can
you
you hear me?
say? Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah. Saying is, have you things that a lot of people, really everybody, has been talking about, since the solstice or maybe 11/11 last year, definitely January, definitely February, that things are moving faster and faster. Our ability to take things in is expanding. Our ability to process, quicker. So with all that happening, are you seeing a difference in your clientele? Are they taking as much work? Are they picking up stuff? Do they look different? More people awake?
I just everyone is. I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question. I can only really come from what I'm experiencing for myself. But yeah, I think you are exactly right. Last week I got 5 phone calls. So it was 5 people wanted sessions on one day, and I was like, what's going on here? They're ready, and definitely the masculine are stepping in now. There was a period of time way back, a little, wasn't that far away, where it was just women. I was always doing sessions on women. And then recently, because we seem to have these collective these collective healings going on as we clear out the patriarchal energy within the masculine and the feminine, the masculine has come in and they've been ready. And the recent belief that they've been needing to work with and clear is I'm not good enough, which for most men that I've worked with has come through the father lineage. So what's really interesting about this belief work is really that is the healing. That is the healing. If we look at at the fact that every single cell in our body is identical to the other one. Like my eye, the cornea of my eye, the cell in there is identical to my cheek. The only thing that separates those cells from each other is the memory of what they are. And apparently what cancer is when they lose their memory. So if we look at when someone has a belief, and some of the core ones, I'm unlovable, I am not enough. Okay, 2 core ones that a lot of other beliefs will hang out in that. If we look at what happens to ourselves, we will go into resisting that belief. We'll go into resisting what it is to be unlovable, and we will shut down. We'll shut down certain feelings and certain experiences within our cells, and hence creating cancer and things like that. Denial is a very interesting thing. It breeds narcissism, it breeds self-righteousness, it breeds people not taking personal responsibility. It breeds the darker forces being able to take over someone. So it's a very interesting topic, this one. It's a very interesting topic. It's a sensitive topic, I understand. Definitely one that could be discussed at another time.
Given these energies and the support, the universal energy as a more expansive support system today as it was other years past on your journey, how quick can somebody clear enough of their BS, enough of their shadow, whatever, enough of their false identities? How quick can somebody clear that to get to a healthy point? I
think you probably know what I'm going to say, because it's really up to the individual. Yeah. I imagine you know that. But it really depends on that person. It's like, how well does someone study at uni? You know, how high is their mark going to be? Well, it depends on how much they study. How willing are they to go, okay, now, because the number one bit of foundation in this work has got to be, you will not get given these tools unless you understand this one thing, and that is, are you aware that you are personally responsible for every single thing that you have created in your life?
Yeah.
You know, now saying that to someone who's been sexually abused, which I've done, I've said this, is a really confronting thing.
Yeah.
But at some point, you know, even taking them on the journey, which I had to recently with a client, of saying, well, this is also including you being up there and saying, well, actually, I choose to come down and go through these experiences to go from, you know, A to become Z, so that I can ascend and then be in service and help others with the coding that I've managed to transform in myself.
Yeah. But as far as are you seeing that? Are you having to work or go as deep with clients today as you were 3 years ago? Is there evidence in your practice of, you know, a collective rise that's affecting everyone?
It's always deep. It's always as deep. Yeah, no, it's always as deep. I think it really depends on where that person is at in their awakening. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, as someone that does this work, I do notice waves. Like when I, you know, 3 to 4 years ago when I started this work, or 4 or 5 years ago when I started this work, I got waves of young, gorgeous women that were like 25 to 29. But they were sent to me because they were all master leaders. Like they're all doing amazing things now. And they had to have, you know, this reptilian implant taken from here, which was put on all of us. You know, they had to have all these things taken off them so that they could actually go boom. And now, you know, a lot of them are doing remarkable things. At this time, yeah, look, the work is always deep. I think, again, you know, it's the same thing. I think if I talk about a big change, I could talk about how the masculine is really ready, how they're really ready to step more into a vulnerable place, you know, and they're ready to acknowledge the denial and go into the healing there, you know, and work out what the confusion is now, and be okay to express emotions, you know.
Yeah, the war's over. The self-mutilation is over for the masculine. So tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up, that event. I had it pulled up, but my battery went dead.
Yes, well, it's still a work in progress, so I can't talk about it too much. But basically, it's a representation of my journey of really going into the sacred Trinity energy. And so recently, it's funny. I've been watching your shows, and so many people have brought up Trinity lately, but it was shown to me a couple of weeks ago, and I was told to look up the Holy Trinity and what that represented. And when I looked it up, I was like, oh my God, it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You know, well, isn't that just the old patriarchal program?
Oh, yeah.
So what I was shown was that we're actually completely recreating that program, and we're completely recreating that program now for the New Earth Mother Gaia, as mother, father, child.
Mother, father, child.
Yeah. Mother, father, child, internally within us. And in that mother, father, child energy, we have to first look at the mother energy and what that is, or the feminine energy, let's just say. And and clear out any of the toxicity in the programs in that. So that's what this course is going to be. It's going to be looking at each aspect, clearing out all the toxic beliefs that sit within, like the old program, within the feminine. So, for example, say I'm unable to receive. Why am I unable to receive? What's my belief there? So we're going to be going into the core beliefs and looking at what those core beliefs are. With the masculine, the other thing I'm hearing a little bit of is when people talk about the masculine energy, they're saying masculine energy is controlling. And this disturbs me, and I'll tell you why. It's getting very confused now because we are trying to clear out the patriarchal controlling energy from the feminine and from the masculine. It's not the masculine that's controlling. It's the program that sits within the masculine that is controlling. We're cleaning out the patriarchal program within the masculine. Call it toxic masculine, whatever you want to do. But when that masculine sits in its divinity, they are able to implement, they are able to be assertive, they are able to honor and move forward in a beingness that is not push or pull. And the same with the feminine, because this is the new energy on Mother Gaia. It is divine flow, and we cannot be in the 5D unless we are in beingness, unless we're able to be within divine flow. And what that means is we cannot sit in front of someone else and tell them how they are supposed to be. We can't control them. That's not the next level 5D. And so what that also means is to have, back to the topic that I wanted to talk about, so to have absolute internal sovereignty, we need to clear out the patriarchal beliefs in the feminine, in the masculine, so that then that child can be parented the way we want to parent her or him. And then they can be the bliss and the creator of the joy that is here to help save the freaking planet or help ascend or whatever we want to see it as. Yeah.
It's a mic drop.
It's a mic drop.
That's a mic drop.
It's a mic drop.
Yeah. And I really like that description, because that's accurate. It's not the masculine and it's not the feminine. It's the patriarchal system, implants, impressions, whatever you want to call it, that we all had. And I think that's why, with what's been happening over the last few months, you have seen a lot of what we attributed to masculine projection, masculine, that whole control, whatever, but you see it in females and males.
Yes.
I have. And I've looked at it, I've go, well, this is getting weird. But that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about, you could use a lot of different words for it. I'm at one with all aspects of the universe, every reptilian, every other ET family, but it could be considered that renegade reptilian, whatever happened here, energy, whatever you want to call it. But it was the predominant energy, and it was imprinted on every one of us. And so, yeah, it's not assigned to a gender, although it looked that way, because God was a God, and there was no goddess ever mentioned, and all the other stuff that was done to eradicate any feminine power in our history, in our daily life, in our rituals, in our churches, and all that stuff. But yeah, that was a great description. Great description. Great hour. Would love to have you back. It's good to have another Australian on here. I've found another one of Morgan's sisters. Y'all speak the exact same language. This is amazing. There's a lot of Australian sisters on the show tonight. I saw them talking to each other. So we will reach out again and see if you'd like to collaborate again down the road. And
I would love that, Todd.
Yeah, we'd love it too. And if you know anyone who might be interested in your circles of coming on, and everybody else, that goes for you too. We do have a lot of messages coming in. We're doing the best we can. We're getting backed up pretty good, but we're going to keep on going with it. Thank you, Sasha Grace, for joining us and honoring us with your presence.
Thank you so much. Can I just take a moment just to appreciate you, because I can see that you are doing this for the highest, and you are you're like a live machine right now. Like you're endless. You just are nonstop, one person after the other, after the other. And you know, I just wanted to really appreciate that you're broadcasting this light as this platform. It's such a beautiful thing. Thank you so very much. You know, it's an amazing thing that you guys are doing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. You're very welcome. And I just want to say too, in respect to the conversation we're having, you were bringing up the Trinity, and that's what it is. It's a Trinity. And so it was a divine feminine, a divine masculine, or you know, that union created a third energy, and that's what's happened. This third energy is the baby, and it is a power in and of itself. So this is our mission, just like you have your mission, and so yeah. But it takes this is I guess a physical impression of the transition from duality to the Trinity, right? And this is, we're lucky enough, Morgan and I and Soulogy, to be part of it. But it's not, Soulogy is not us. It's everyone that's infused themselves into this energy. And so, yeah, great show, great commentary, great way to end the day. It's nice to make a new friend. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. I think we got another 3 or 4 shows tomorrow. I don't know what they are, but I'll post them tonight. Thank you, Sasha. I'll see you again.
Thank you, Todd. Much love. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.